What is going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, March 26th. This is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Joe Macheca. It is March. We are in the thick of it. South Carolina women's basketball is headed to an 11th straight Sweet 16. Can't get much sweeter than that. Birmingham barbecue chicken. Can the Gamecocks win two more to head to yet another Final Four? A preview of the whole thing in Birmingham. Plus, who takes the cake? Who will we be talking about this time next week? All the superlatives, everything you need from all things Gamecock women's basketball on this week's episode of The Walkthrough. Again, I know we got some spring football. We will be in on that next week, so be sure to tune into that. But here goes the intro. Enjoy the tunes as we roll into this week's episode. Appreciate you guys being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's the best time of the year. It is March. South Carolina women's basketball cruises to their 11th straight Sweet 16. Pretty impressive stuff from Dawn Staley and her squad and this whole program as a whole, but getting things done against Tennessee Tech, scoring 108 points. We'll start with that one. Pulling up the box score here against Tennessee Tech. Gamecocks were all over it, 108-48. Joyce Edwards was fantastic. Again, looking at the box score here against Tennessee Tech, as South Carolina cruised to their 11th straight Sweet 16 going into Birmingham this week. We will have boots on the ground. Ryan Bethea and I are off to Birmingham tomorrow morning. It's early tomorrow morning to get to Birmingham for practice. So we will be there. But again, taking a look at the box score here against Tennessee Tech, what stood out? I mean, all of it really. Chloe Kitts was lightning in a bottle again for South Carolina. Really good stuff there. Bree Hall was great again, and 9 points there against Tennessee Tech, and was really key against IU. And we'll get to that here in a second. But Joyce Edwards is the one who stood out the most. I mean, 9 for 12. She was shooting 100% for a big chunk of that game. 4-4 from the free throw line. South Carolina was again 100% from the free throw line until the very end there. Sakima Walker missed a couple. Bree Hall also missing one of her own. Full Wiley was also great off the bench. Again, almost shooting 100% there, 6 of 8, 15 for Full Wiley. And, she continues to find her form here in the early going for South Carolina in this tournament. So that's big, absolutely big for the Gamecocks going forward is Full Wiley. Raven Johnson got involved with 8, Pow, 9 points of her own. I think this is the most spread out we've seen the scoring all year. So it's exciting. It really is exciting. As EXO checking in from the comments. Appreciate you joining in. Says, hope we're going to win it all. Team is good enough if we are playing to our strengths. Yes, absolutely. And one of those strengths certainly being getting everyone involved, right? Again, like I said, you've got at least 5 points, or at least 6 points from all your starters. Sanaya Fagan didn't have the best of games, but that was, again, because Joyce Edwards was doing what she did. 21 minutes for Joyce, Sanaya playing 17, but not as much on the offensive end. Getting involved with a block again and 5 boards for Sanaya. So she continues to evolve here as well. But it was all Joyce Edwards really. What else can you say? 5 boards along with the 22 points. The turnovers were limited. You were worried, if Joyce was going to take over that game, if the turnovers were going to start to creep up. But again, Edwards, limited the turnovers and was able to control the basketball down in the post there, down the stretch for South Carolina. Tennessee's Tech coach, who was an assistant in the SEC and also played in the SEC, was pretty impressed with Joyce. If you want to hear those quotes, go check out my sidebar from that game over on thebigspur.com. But again, Joyce Edwards, lights out in game 1. To recap, again, game 1 of South Carolina's NCAA tournament. 108-48, pretty good opening statement for South Carolina, as you figured they would get the job done there against Tennessee Tech. As we move into this game, IU gave them a bit more of a run. Again, pulling up the box score here so we don't have to watch any ads because nobody likes them. Again, IU coming into this one, there was a lot of talk about just everything about this game, right? Like, a lot of stuff that got misconstrued as well, I think. But so before the game, Sydney Parrish goes, she kind of regurgitates some coach speak, right? Says that they're trying to outsmart South Carolina. Now, I don't think she was calling South Carolina dumb by any means, but also like it's one of those things where it's, you got to find something, right? You have to find a little chink in the armor. You got to find some area that you can believe that you can beat this team, right? Because so far, this team has yet to give anybody any reason or anywhere to really attack besides the post, right? It's like, oh, Ashton Watkins is down. Maybe we can attack him through the post. But meanwhile, South Carolina is one of the best teams in the country. Again, I haven't run those stats quite yet, or quite as recently, but one of the best teams in the country in points in the paint. A lot of that because Joyce Edwards, right? So I don't blame Sydney Parrish per se for saying what she said. Now, again, certainly is bulletin board material, right? She said it. And you can't take that back. But trying to outsmart South Carolina, I certainly think that they were all over it. And outsmarted Indiana, right? I mean, if they shot the ball better in the first quarter, I think they were 23% shooting in the first quarter against Indiana. Had they shot the ball a little bit better, I think, it would have been a different story. And again, South Carolina got back to their roots. The veterans stepped up, and that was the end of it. But I think South Carolina certainly outplayed IU down the end of that game, right? And out physicaled them and just did all the things that South Carolina was good at. And you don't see a whole lot of depth scoring here. Again, Joyce wasn't necessarily herself, 2 of 8. Got 23 minutes, but just didn't necessarily see the ball. But it was Tessa again stepping up. Chloe Kitts was great. But Breezy Hall, I want to talk about her performance in this game. She stepped up when the lights, or essentially when her team needed her the most, right? Her and Sanaya Fagan down there in the post, able to get things done. Fagan, 10 points, 3 rebounds again, but she was huge. A block to go with that, a block and a steal for Fagan. She kind of led things on the defensive end and offensive end. Pow, 4 blocks, 2 steals. I'll get to Pow's performance a little bit later. But again, just great performance from this team, battling back from adversity. You wound up shooting 43% after shooting a whopping 23% in the first quarter. So, it's to be able to shoot, 43% in the game. You have to shoot, 50% in the second quarter. You got to come out hot and do well there. So again, now disregard, all things that Sydney Parrish said. This team played well. I think this was kind of just a gritty game without everything surrounding it. And South Carolina certainly found all the motivation that they needed. And I'm with it, right? I don't think that the South Carolina side blew it out of proportions by any means either. Like at this point, you got to find anything that can motivate you, right? And when you're at the top, it can be hard to find things to motivate you. And so when Sydney Parrish said that they're going to try to outsmart them, well, I mean, they took all the motivation that they needed. And whether or not it was not being the number 1 seed against Tennessee Tech or what, but being able to find motivation, especially when you're at the top and the 2-time defending national champions, you're looking for a three-peat. You got to keep finding motivation to things to stay motivated about. You look at MJ. I mean, born and raised in South Bend. My father was a Chicago guy. The dude would find motivation off of a coach ignoring him at dinner. Like, what are we doing? So this basketball team has to be the same way, because right now they're at the peak. Jordan was at the peak back in the day and would find things to motivate him. This team has to be the same way because, the basketball that they're playing now, the basketball that they've played all year has been fantastic enough. And again, I think that the UConn game was enough of a wake-up call too, enough of a gut check. It can be easy to stay up on this plateau in women's basketball and get complacent with where you're at. So to have that UConn gut check so late in the season too, the fact that game was as late as it was gave this team enough for a wake-up call and enough for a reset to really, fine-tune the things that they do well, going into March. So again, South Carolina beats IU. It was ugly in the first quarter. You scored 9 points, but you battled back. You scored 26 in the third. Their third quarter efficiency has been great. You saw a lot of good stuff out of a lot of good players. They were just happy to be moving on. And Dawn really leaning on her starters, her vets. And this one, as you look at, the minutes too, 25 minutes out of Chloe, 28 out of Sanaya, 33 out of Bree Hall, again, shows you why. She scored 11. She was 3 of 4 from 3. Nobody else came close to that at South Carolina. On South Carolina side, Powell hit 1, which was big. But, Bree Hall certainly earning all 33 of those minutes, in round 2 against IU. EXO, again, we always have someone stepping up, can't overlook anyone. Again, that's the 100% correct there. Yeah, like that's the beauty of Dawn Staley's teams. That's what makes her team so special, is they're going to be deep. They're going to be deep. Talking off or with Tyler Head on 107.5 every Friday morning, I feel like it comes up every week because of how deep this team is and how deep and how far they can go. That's IU. Again, South Carolina cruising on to their 11th straight Sweet 16. Again, I feel like I've said it a lot, so sometimes you tend to forget it. But yes, 11-point victory over Indiana, despite all of the noise and all of the nonsense with Sydney Parrish and trying to outsmart them and everything like that. Like, you're able to put that behind you, cruise on. The three-peat is still intact, right? So all goals ahead of you there. And again, I'm going to get to some superlatives again and just who played well and also look at kind of some things that this team needs to do in Birmingham, stepping up going forwards as well, looking ahead. So I'm going to get to all that right after a quick commercial break. This is the walkthrough. Appreciate you guys tuning in. More of the walkthrough coming at you right after this commercial break. Stay here.
Low on energy? Struggling with inflammation and poor digestion? Try Encapsulate 6 Mushroom Blend and get back in the game. Our blend is specially formulated to promote overall wellness and maximize health benefits using 6 powerful functional mushrooms. Our science-forward approach offers the most potent and bioavailable mushroom supplement on the market, backed by third-party testing to ensure safety and efficacy. Order online on Amazon or encapsulateusa.com today to start your journey to better living. Enter promo code JCM for $10 off.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time.
MidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth. And, we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Yeah, appreciate our sponsors, Resto Pros of the Midlands and Protect with Bear, making this show possible. Moving right along, again, with the Birmingham preview, Birmingham coming up here this weekend. Again, Ryan Bethea, the photog. If you haven't seen any of his work, go check it all out on his Instagram, his socials, Ryan Bethea, Bethea. He's the man, our photographer for the Big Spur. But we are shipping out to Birmingham tomorrow for practice. So Gamecocks getting loaded up, ready to go for Birmingham game 1 against Maryland coming at you on Friday, 5:00. Taking a look at Maryland real quick. Maryland, they've lost to 20. They enter, I think it's 25-7. Yep. On the season, they're led heavily by their guards. Common losses or common opponents tally Texas, UCLA, and Michigan, right? Michigan, South Carolina beat in the opening game in Las Vegas. I will say Maryland 1-1 against Michigan. They lost in the Big Ten Championship, beat them once in the regular season. They also have another loss to Southern Cal. So technically they've lost to USC once before, but I'm not funny. We knew this. They also lost to Texas and UCLA, 2 teams South Carolina also lost to. Texas, again, Carolina 1-1 with. Again, looking at the scoring breakdown and the statistical breakdown here, you got Kayleen, I'm not going to try to say that. We're bad with last names here. But Cheyenne Sellers, again, second leading scorer for Maryland. The Terps coming in here, playing 30 minutes a game. The starters play a lot of minutes here, or games, excuse me. But you look at the minutes, certainly not as evenly spread out. But, a lot of different players have had to step up. Sellers playing the majority of the minutes there, 29 minutes a game, averaging 14. 4 assists per game as well, leading the team as well. So, guard heavy is Maryland from my scouting, right? And I think what the opportunity that this gives South Carolina is, it gives the guards like Tessa Johnson, like Tahina Paopao, like Raven, like Bree Hall, even to make plays on the defensive end. For Wiley coming off the bench as well. To make plays come on defense, turn that into offense. Whenever we see a guard heavy team or a team that likes to score with their guards, South Carolina tends to, lock up defensively. Seatbelt gang tends to start to come to the surface, right? So when the seatbelt gang comes to surface against guards, it leads to a lot of fast break scoring and quite a bit of it for South Carolina there. So again, this is some Maryland scouting again, guard heavy. For Maryland. Again, taking a look at their schedule this year, as I mentioned, common losses to Texas and UCLA. They also lost to Michigan as well, but Michigan team South Carolina beat. Maryland was able to beat Michigan in the regular season, as I mentioned here in February. So Michigan able to get the revenge. Team South Carolina beat. But things to watch. Again, I do want to pull up the bracket as we could. Of course, we can add. Looking at it here, the Birmingham side of things for South Carolina at least. You got the bottom side versus who South Carolina might face in the Final Four. We'll talk about that as well coming up here. But it switched. Let me switch this over to the NCAA tournament bracket. Excuse me. Pulling it up. All right, so here we go. Taking a look, South Carolina's side of the bracket, right? Advanced past Tennessee Tech. We covered that. Indiana beats Utah. Indiana loses to South Carolina. 64-53. We talked about that. Again, matching up with Maryland. Maryland gets into this one on the heels of a double OT win against Alabama. That I think if Bama was in Birmingham, that would have been the most non-home crowd that South Carolina has seen this year, right? But nonetheless, Maryland wins in double overtime. Maryland is headed to the Sweet 16, faces off against South Carolina. So as I mentioned about Maryland, guard heavy, super, super, super guard heavy, and rare and ready to go. I expect South Carolina's guards to, again, lock up. That's when we see a lot of scoring, a lot of transition offense. So for Wiley, Johnson, Paopao, everybody on the outside, this team has been shooting the ball really well. So expect them to get hot again when it's a guard heavy matchup. South Carolina's guards eat in transition, doing things well. So again, on the other side, on the flip side, you look at this Duke North Carolina matchup real quick. Taking a look at that, you've got, you need both two teams that South Carolina saw last season, right? One of which South Carolina is seeing this season, or saw this season in Duke. Chloe Kitts went off, was able to secure the win in the second half. I believe she had 25. I don't have it in front of me. Excuse me. Chloe Kitts was in the 20s, secure the win against Duke. Really took over in the fourth quarter, was big. That was kind of the first game this season where we saw Chloe Kitts develop and really, really take over this offense. So, I think the Fams would feel comfortable against Duke. Certainly going to feel comfortable against North Carolina. You beat them twice last season. Not returning a whole lot of the same team, but again, same program, similar to IU. It's the same program. You saw it, same coach, same system, right? So same goes with Duke. So yeah, that's what you have waiting on the other side. If you can beat again Maryland, in this 5 p.m. game, you've got Duke or North Carolina waiting on the other side. So super fun again for the Elite Eight, depending on who wins. I think it's going to be Duke, which again, you've seen, South Carolina's seen. It's a hungry Duke team. This Duke team played them hard. But again, you're just going to have to wait and see. It's one of those things. So we will have to see. Maryland again, super talented. Duke again possessing a lot of size. Again, gave South Carolina a run of it, but by the way that the forwards have been playing, by the way the homegrown talent and Joyce Edwards has been playing, I think South Carolina takes it and moves on to their 5th straight Final Four. But that's me again, knocking on wood here. Who knows? Don't come back blaming the walkthrough man for saying that they would advance past. But that's my Birmingham regional preview. Gonna get into some awards for last week, some superlatives from last week as we move things along here. That's the projections. Excuse me. Players of the weekend, right? Who stood out in weekend 1 of the NCAA tournament? My player of the weekend is Chloe Kitts. 10 points in each game. Her 10th straight double-double against IU was massive. She was amongst, the starters who dominated in that 4th quarter and were really, really, really big on, extending, this team's postseason run, making sure that there was no doubt and that they had all of the momentum that they could possibly conjure up going into this Sweet 16. So MVP, player of the weekend, goes to Chloe Kitts. Again, really, really, really good stuff offensively, defensively. Chloe was doing it, grabbing boards against IU, which was huge. IU wore out South Carolina's forwards. I expect, the forwards to continue their great play against Maryland. You're going to need them again, as I mentioned. Maryland super guard heavy, so it's just one of those things where you got to stay on it. Chloe Kitts has been playing really, 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 really well. She tallied her 10th straight, as I mentioned, double-double. She's got a lot going for her, right? So it's hard to, doubt her. She was the SEC tournament player, or SEC tournament MVP, excuse me. Talking a lot here. Her boyfriend also might be a lottery pick. I threw that in the show notes as kind of a little fun line. She's got everything going for her, to say the least. So expecting her to, continue momentum, continue to grow as a player. She's got one more year at South Carolina, again, continuing to grow, mature faster than, again, an early enrollee junior. So showing moxie, showing great things. Chloe Kitts is, she's averaging 10 points, 7.9 boards on 52% shooting. Again, the 2-time defending national champions. Chloe Kitts is in a groove right now, and it's going to be hard to shake it. So she's my player of the weekend. Moving into my offensive player of the weekend. Slight drum roll. I don't know how great that was, but moving into it, Tessa Johnson, my offensive player of the weekend. 20 points was great. She, she scored 11 points against Tennessee Tech, 9 points against IU. Big shot Tessa, warming up for the brightest lights. I expect her to continue to go. Excuse me if this time, or I guess Tuesday next week, I hand Tessa another offensive MVP, because she's been that great offensively. And you probably wonder, why don't you give it to Bree? Why don't you give it to Powell? Which probably should have given it to Bree offensively. Again, had she played a little bit better against Tennessee Tech, she was also great, hitting a lot of threes, but getting it done against Tennessee Tech. But my offensive player of the week was Tessa. Again, really good warm-up weekend. Good stuff. I mean, she had a lot of big shots this weekend. And it's exactly what you want to see out of Tessa Johnson this time of year. So there's my offensive player of the weekend. Defensive player of the weekend. Here we go. Why I didn't give the offensive player of the weekend to Hina? Because she's my defensive player of the weekend. Powell on the defensive end, stepping up. Huge weekend with, on the defensive end. 4 blocks against IU. Huge stuff. And Sanaya Fagan was so happy when she saw, or when she, was talking about, Powell getting involved on the defensive end. She said the guards are finally invading the turf, and she said it's a block party, welcome to it. So big stuff for Powell, getting involved again, as I mentioned, on the defensive end. She's my defensive MVP there. And just morale is high when the guards are getting involved on the defensive end. When Fulwiley is stealing the ball and running to the other end of the floor and, either laying it up or chucking a buzzer beating three that, to everybody in the building is like, oh, and then to her, she knows it's going in. I think, again, it's part of when the identity of this team, guards getting involved on defense. And just it results to good things on the offensive end. Fast break points in the paint, high percentage shots, the things that win basketball games, plain and simple. So yeah, absolutely. Breezy again. Yeah. EXO checking in. Yeah. Breezy again. She was great offensively against IU. Really, she was. And defensively, she's captain this whole defense. And I'm interested to pick her brain after she has a big defensive game here, either this weekend or potentially in Tampa. Knocking on wood there for all you little stitious people, right? Maybe some superstitious people, maybe a little stitious people, anybody. It all goes. But yeah, Breezy's been great. EXO checking in. Mac Lee Green, excuse me. Tessa hasn't been shooting too well recently. 7 of her points in the last game came from the free throw line. She's been throwing up some bricks lately, which is uncommon. Yeah, I know. And again against IU, hasn't been wasn't her best performance of the day, but she got involved, right? Any other way or any way she could. And you're right, Mac. There's probably a better pick there for offensive MVP of the weekend. And again, probably should have gone to Joyce Edwards, 22 points in her first NCAA tournament game, the homegrown freshman from Camden. There's plenty of storylines to go there, but again, went with Tessa again because I had to go with Pow for defensive simply because of how everything went down defensively. Nonetheless, we move on to who could we be talking about next week, right? Who could we be talking about next week? We talked about, what this, regional looks like in Birmingham, who South Carolina could potentially face, what that'll looks like from a team perspective. Now, who do I think we are going to be talking about come next week? Right? Who do I think is going to be next weekend's MVP? Same thing, talking about next Tuesday. My projection on who this upcoming weekend's MVP is going to be in Birmingham. Right? Again, a bad drum roll there. We'll get a sound effect or something going here these next couple of weeks. But who do I think next weekend's MVP or this upcoming weekend's MVP is going to be? Mylasia Fulwiley is going to be next weekend's MVP. Again, I've mentioned it. If things don't go right for Lay, don't come back and be like the walkthrough man jinxed her. Maybe. We knock on wood, so that's the least we can do here. But I think Lay's going to thrive this weekend. I really do. Maryland, as I mentioned, guard heavy. When this team is playing, I've said it about 1,000 times on this show, when this team is playing lockdown defense from their guards, good things happen. And when you talk about a player forcing turnovers and having things happen for you offensively, nobody better comes to mind than Lay Fulwiley. And Matt Green says, I love Tessa. She's my favorite player. And I just want to see the ball switch the net. She's too good. Yeah, absolutely. And, I did mention, same to this point, Mac here, on my awards projections, as I mentioned, don't hate me if I come back next weekend with Tessa as my offensive MVP. I've got her as my potential offensive MVP for next weekend. Right. Tess is one of those, and EXO kind of on the topic awards projections. Who could step up next week? How about an underrated player that will step up in the tournament? Miriam Dowd has always been my sleeper pick. I know the message board certainly haven't liked Miriam Dowd. It's hard to say despise. Miriam Dowd is one of the most likable, most easygoing, most just easiest humans to ever interact with. If you need to change your mind on this, go watch any media availability with Miriam Dowd. She's very easygoing, very kind, very awesome. So it makes her hard to dislike, right? But I do think she's got a role on this team. She showed it against Arkansas. So EXO's short answer, it's easy to pin it on Dowda. But I think Dowda could be one to watch to step up. It's the easy answer for potential because, again, she showed it against Arkansas. or Oklahoma, excuse me, in the SEC tournament. So underrated player that will step up. There's that. I think Maddie McDaniel is my other sneaky one for this one, right? The mouse, Maddie McDaniel. Maddie McDaniel's too good not to make an impact as a freshman, even though you are so loaded at guard as the South Carolina team is. Maddie McDaniel, watch out. The mouse is going to make an impact too as well. I could see her, providing a defensive edge, or maybe a spark off the bench when somebody isn't, quite, feeling themselves out of this guard room for South Carolina. So be on the lookout for Maddie Mouse, but as well. But so again, my offensive MVP, Tessa's heats up. Tessa, tends to make big shots, as Mac said. I love Tessa. She's my favorite player. Just want to see the ball swish the net because she's too good not to. Yeah, she's too good not to be hitting shots. And I think, Mac, to your point, I think it's going to start hitting a little bit more this weekend, right? We saw the guards and things open up for this offense for the guards. The ball looked easier going in, more comfortable going in, even after shooting 23% in the first quarter against Indiana. They still, and again, it was a little clanky, that Indiana game, but Bree Hall seemed to find a rhythm. And when all of your guards are able to pop out like that on a weekend, should give you a lot of faith going forwards, and especially with Tessa. So I think we're going to be sitting here next weekend talking about Tessa Johnson as the offensive MVP. Defensive MVP next weekend, I think, has to be given to Bree Hall. Your vets tend to come up at the biggest moments for you for South Carolina. She's the leader of the Seatbelt gang, right? Just inducted a new member. Shout out to Pal for getting into the Seatbelt gang. I wish I was cool enough to be in, or good enough, say per se. I was usually the guy leading the handshakes or inventing the Seatbelt gang. I wish I was good enough to be in said Seatbelt gang because of my defense. Pow certainly earned it with her 4 blocks, long story short, and was able to get things done. So I think Bree Hall is going to step up. We're going to see a lot of tip passes. Again, Fulwiley certainly has to get things done on the defensive end to be, the weekend MVP. But Bree Hall going to lead the way for South Carolina moving forwards. So, and this weekend in Birmingham. So a lot of exciting stuff. Again, I'm gonna throw the bracket again back up on the screen real quick. As we look, South Carolina headed to Birmingham this weekend. The photog for the Big Spur, Mr. Ryan Bethea, and I are off tomorrow morning towards Birmingham. Get there for practice. Give you guys all the coverage on thebigspur.com. So be sure to check that out as well. Be sure to just keep refreshing that website. We'll have all of the news, and then Plano's PPG message boards for all things South Carolina, for game updates, for press conference updates, all things on the Plano's PPG message boards. But we will be coming at you from Birmingham. Again, stay tuned on that. Might have to throw a special edition of the walkthrough again in on Sunday night or something. We'll talk about that. Yeah, a lot of good stuff again tonight, but we are headed to Birmingham this weekend. So a lot of fun in store this weekend. Again, super thankful. I'll take the tail end of the show. Just shout out JC Sherbert, the boss man, and John Whittle again for making this all happen. It's my first NCAA tournament, so I'm getting the chance to ride it out, to cover it all out. So means a lot. And again, as JC mentioned, if you guys checked out Inside the Gamecocks, the weekday show, I was on their show Friday morning. I believe it was Friday morning. Or Thursday morning, Wednesday morning, last week. And JC had mentioned something about Dreamland. So excited to get some barbecue, especially on the guys. And then again, knocking on wood, hope to see all of you Gamecocks down in Tampa as well. So appreciate everyone tuning in to this week's episode of the walkthrough. Again, super fun episode. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Matt Anderson, excuse me. A lot of names flying. Matt Anderson and Alex Jones will be live for the late night Gamecock show on on the Chief Sports Network on YouTube, on the Big Spur, on Twitter. Be sure to check them out. They will be live at 8:00. So coming at you live in about 13-ish minutes, just about per se. So If you want, go check out the rest of this episode if you missed me. But be sure to go check out Matt and Alex, the late night Gamecock show, starting at 8:00. Be sure. Don't be late. It is the late night Gamecock show. Don't be late on those guys. They're the best. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, if you missed any of our episodes, go back to the Chief Sports Network YouTube channel where you can find all of our episodes. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe and then hit that little bell icon next to that subscription button. Be sure that you get notified every time we go live so you don't miss a single show. Again, appreciate everyone tuning in. It means a lot. And we will see you guys on the other side of the Sweet 16 in the Elite 8. Again, say some prayers for the travel and that we get to Birmingham safely. Should be a good time. But everyone have a great and safe and healthy weekend. Weather's getting great, so get out. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy yourself. But be safe, y'all. Thank you.